So you're preparing to do a video demo to engage your students in science. Now, I think that's great, and research from Harvard actually agrees. But in order for this to be true, that STEM demonstrations can be as effective as classroom teaching, they need to be high rigor and purposeful. So this video will walk you through the basic questions and tasks you need to do to ensure that your STEM demo is high rigor and aligned to the NGSS standards. Feel free to speed this video up in settings. This is a condensed virtual tutorial that ideally involves 2 to 3 hours of interaction from your end. So later on in the video, we'll address double planning, but you'll also hear me ask you to pause the video at frequent intervals so that you can complete some action steps. To make the best possible use of this video tutorial, you should pull up a lesson that you'll turn into an interactive virtual demo. If you don't have a lesson ready for this year, find an activity that you did with students last year, which this year would have to go virtual. You can print it out to take notes during the tutorial, or keep it on a computer and flip to it when instructed to pause. If you don't have a printer, well, you can visit the Teacher Free Store at STEM Library Lab and take home a printer, as well as virtually any other material you might need for your virtual classroom setup. So at this time, let's put it into practice. I want you to pause the video and select the lesson that you will use to frame the rest of this video tutorial. You're going to pull it up on your computer or print it out directly so you can annotate it. You can also feel free to pull up the virtual demos guided notes page that's linked in the video description. It looks just like this. Well, there we go. So go ahead and pause the video now and pull up a lesson. Okay. So you are watching Leading Virtual Demonstrations, which is part of the Engaging Students in LSSS Aligned Instruction workshop series from STEM Library Lab. Today's goal is to be able to plan and implement a high rigor virtual demo or activity that's aligned to the Louisiana Student Standards for Science. Also, you'll commonly hear NGSS or Next Gen standards. So we're going to walk through the purpose of video demos, followed by the logistics of actually on. We're going to talk about double planning on the teacher action side and the student action side. I am Todd Wackerman. I'm the director of STEM Library Lab, which is a New Orleans-based resource center for teachers and an equipment share library for teachers to get what they need. I'm formerly a math and science teacher and currently certified in NGSS training. So let's dive right in. The first step is to determine the purpose of your video demo. Now, I want to do a demo on a particular activity that I want students to see. And unfortunately, we're actually already off to the wrong start. I want you to start with, we're working on blank LSSS performance expectation. Alternatively, maybe you're adapting a curriculum for remote learning, and the curriculum calls for students to do an activity, but they can't do it, so you're going to do a virtual demo. So let's take a look at some of those options. Maybe that curriculum is mystery science. Maybe that curriculum is Amplify. Maybe it's Open SciEd if you're in middle school, or Inquiry Hub if you're in high school. So all of these will have LSSS alignment documents. And if we take a look at the official Louisiana Student Standards for Science or Next Generation Science Standards, this is a performance expectation. So no matter whether you're adapting a pre-made curriculum or you're designing your own, that curriculum should tell you what performance expectation your activity aligns to. If you're not sure what a performance expectation is, check out the link in our description to learn more about our professional development opportunities for science teachers. So at this time, please go ahead and pause the video, locate the performance expectation that aligns to the activity you're intending to teach. It may look slightly different if you're using a pre-made curriculum, but it will have science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and cross-cutting concepts embedded in. Pause the video now. Okay, so we've got an objective or a standard that we are aligned to. Now, before you start planning your demo, you want to know what outcome you hope to achieve. Let's look at some outcomes. Will this demo that you're putting on open up new question avenues for students to explore? Will it clarify a question that they've currently been working on? Maybe it's going to provide a visual representation of a complex idea. Possibly it's going to provide a visual representation of something that you want them to replicate or do themselves. Maybe it's to collect some data or to start an investigation that they're going to continue. Um, So you're going to select an outcome. It could be one of those or something else. And it's something the video demo is intended to accomplish. And then you're going to ask yourself, is recording a video demo the best way to achieve this outcome? Or could they do something else instead? Could they go outside and collect data? Could they research a topic? Could they draw a model of a process? If none of those things accomplish your outcome, then great, it's time for a video demo. And at this time, we're going to pause the video. And I want you to write down in the box on your guided notes page, what is your intended outcome for this demo? And then I want you to brainstorm one or two additional ways that you could convey this information and then affirm that a video demo really is the best option to get kids engaged in this lesson. So go ahead and pause the video now. Okay. So we decided on our purpose and our outcome. It's time to move on to step 2, the logistics of your video. So let's start by deciding what platform you want to use to capture your demo. Now, you may be assigned a specific platform by your school. That may be something like Microsoft Teams or Google Meets or Zoom. I like Zoom for myself, and that's what I'm using right now because I can video both myself and my workspace, and then I can toggle between screen sharing if I want to pose a question to the class or I want to point something out on their handout. So I can do all of those things through Zoom and say, oh, and direct your attention to this particular spot on the virtual demo, on the guided notes page. Or I can demonstrate a specific platform or program that I want them to be able to see. So then let's talk about camera placement. If you have a cell phone or an external camera or a document camera, you've got lots of different options. But generally speaking, if you're demonstrating a phenomenon, you want to think through what is the angle that captures it best. So if I'm going to demonstrate the phenomenon of this cart rolling up and down this track, I need to decide what camera angle captures it best. Am I going overhead? Am I going not? You may want to use a friend to play camera person for you, or you may have some setup with a bunch of boxes to get something from overhead. So now you're asking, do you want to use your computer or your phone? And each has its own advantages. So the computer, of course, is stable. It's got a good large screen for you to see yourself and verify the progress of the video. It, of course, allows you to do things like pulling up PowerPoints and guided notes. So PowerPoints or guided notes. It also allows you to pull up external programs that you may be able to use to underscore the work you're doing. So here, and we collect some data. That data and apparently try to capture it again later with higher reaction time. So if you want to go phone, the phone, of course, also has some great options. It's way more mobile. And one easy addition to that is by adding something like a tripod. So this can make sure that you solve your stability problems and get good, easy angles. Phone. They're also usually pretty accessible for screen sharing. Well, So I'm not asking for you to become a master of video editing. I'm filming this as a contiguous shot, and I suggest that you do as well, unless video production is already in your wheelhouse. Now, we do have the option in Zoom to pause a recording and then come back to it later. So you're still filming this as a contiguous shot. There's no editing, but you can pause if something goes wrong or needs to be changed. I would also invite you to keep your video demo short. What I'm filming right now is a video tutorial. It's not a classroom demo. I would advise you to do a lot of work to make your demos high rigor. And I think that doing that all day, every day would just be wildly unsustainable. So please keep your video demos short. And so at this time, I'm going to ask you to pause the video. And we will. Okay, I want you to read over your upcoming virtual demo lesson plan. I want you to verbally tell a neighbor or a pet or a houseplant what is the platform that you will use to record your demo and why. If you are unsure, please verbally state how you're going to research options or who you're going to call to talk about different recording programs. So pause the video now. Okay. So now let's talk through double planning and the teacher action side of your double planning. I'm going to share with you my outline and script. So you're going to create a script or an outline, and you're going to do so with ideally a 3-column format where column 1 is teacher actions, column 2 is teacher words, and column 3 is student actions. Every time you write what you are going to say or do, you're going to mirror that with the actions that students will do at the same time. For now, let's just focus on the teacher actions and words. I like to use a table in a Word document and chunk out different rows to represent each discrete idea or action that I take. I like a 3-column, but if you prefer 2-column, you can add the directions and actions for the teacher into a single column together. So at this time, we're going to pause the video. You may decide you want to watch the rest of this video twice. First time you watch it all the way through, and then the second time you'll come back and you'll pause the video now. Assuming we're at that stage, you're going to pause and you're going to create your teacher columns for your activity by scripting out and outlining the teacher actions and the words that you'll take. You'll also see at time you can use that if you want or skip it. Okay. And now we're going to review our teacher column for clarity. For each chunk of words or action that we take, I want you to consider, why is it relevant to student mastery and how does it align to your purpose for the demo? So as you annotate for clarity, should you be providing or foregoing verbal exposition or context? If you want students to discover things, make sure that you're not providing the exposition ahead of time. Remember ABC, activity before content. Does your script or tone give away something that you want them to discover on their own? Are you leading them to an answer by your tone? Maybe you are. Are your words and actions concise? Do they highlight the things students need to internalize or go off on tangents? I look back at old lessons and realize that the reason students struggled was me. I didn't set them up for success because I either provided sloppy instructions or I failed to focus their attention on the aspect of the task that I expected them to follow. So you may choose to do this annotation in writing, which is recommended, or you may choose to just review each chunk and make real-time changes since you're using a Word doc. The comments feature in Word is something that I really recommend as a way to record notes. You will find exactly one comment in here, and it's me clarifying and making sure that what I'm telling you actually is sensible and clear. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and annotate our script for clarity. Um, apparently this slide is off, so I could pause at this time and fix it, but we're going to keep on rolling. So you're going to annotate for clarity. And you're going to make sure that your script outlines and emphasizes the pieces that you want to make sure students take away so that it is clear on your end. Okay, now we're going to address rigor and standards alignment for your teacher actions. And if you haven't seen this already, I'm going to pull up the cross-cutting concepts. So the 7 cross-cutting concepts can be found by Googling cross-cutting concepts NGSS. If you're not super familiar with cross-cutting concepts, you may want to inquire about STEM Library Lab's Pedagogy and Practice, PDs, which are linked in the video description. You're going to check your list of cross-cutting concepts, and you're going to check which concepts are specifically addressed in the performance expectation that you're using. So if I'm using this performance expectation, I find, and this is 3rd grade life sciences is this performance expectation. And I can find that it highlights systems and system models. So going back to cross-cutting concepts, systems and system models is one of our 7 concepts. Select 1 or 2 cross-cutting concepts that you want to revise into your teacher script and do that to help explicitly have students make connections. Ideally, these would be the ones from your performance expectation, but if you see different cross-cutting concepts, like you really like cause and effect or scale, proportion, and quantity, then use the ones that you see as fitting best. Let's go back to our planning document. And you want to just be explicit that you are naming them. In this activity, I want you to pay particular attention to how energy flows in the system, or to how scale and proportion play a role in the interactions of objects. And for your demo, I want you to reiterate the same 1 or 2 cross-cutting concepts multiple times throughout your script. I might select cause and effect for this tutorial because I want you to see how teacher actions cause student actions. I might also select patterns because I frequently use patterns in the PowerPoint with the pausing to underscore how to best direct your focus. And so at this time, I'd like you to pause the video and I'd like you to annotate your script for standards alignment by identifying the relevant concepts from the lesson. Call out the cross-cutting concepts in your teacher actions column of your double planning page. You may want to use a different color. And if you are using a different curriculum, you can still find those cross-cutting concepts that are going to be located in that curriculum, in your curriculum planning information. Okay, so now we're going to address variation. Now, I'm not actually conducting a demo in this explainer video, but you want to think through whether your video modalities keep students engaged. Consider how to move between the camera on you, the camera on the demo in action, the PowerPoint, the supplemental materials, everything you've got to keep things dynamic. So at this time, please go ahead and pause the video. And you're going to review for variation. So annotate your script, count the number of modalities your demo will use and the frequency with which you switch between them. Review your teacher actions column to ensure there's ample variation with the different camera and sharing options that you're using. Okay, so let's talk about student actions when you're double planning. I'm going to take a look at our planning document where you can see student actions highlighted in the last column. So before you write out these student actions for each section of the script, you're going to take a look holistically at your plan and determine student deliverables. Let's go back to our guided notes page. And go back to your intended outcome from this demo in order to decide on deliverables. What are students submitting and what will you do with it? Do you want a piece of paper, a written answer to questions, a drawing or a model, a graph, a video response that gives claim, evidence, and reasoning? Are you going to grade this submission or use it as a completion assignment or a formative assessment? One way or another, you need a deliverable, or else you don't know whether students have actively participated or whether they arrive at the conclusions that you want them to draw. So at this time, please pause the video, review what you wrote for your intended outcome in step 1. Write down on your guided notes page, what is the deliverable that students will produce during and following your demo, and particularly following your demo, and how will you use it? Okay. Student deliverables should be aligned to a science and engineering practice from the LSSS. Students should not just be answering some questions about the demo. Now, if you're not super familiar with science and engineering practices, you may want to inquire about STEM Library Lab's pedagogy and practice professional development workshops. Let's take a look at science and engineering practices. So there are 8 science and engineering practices, and you want to align your deliverable with 1 or 2 of these science and engineering practices. The performance expectation that you're aligning to, which is found in expectations or in your particular curriculum's planning materials. But that performance expectation will include 1 or 2 practices that may be ideal for your purpose, or you may want to find one that's a better fit. Arguing from evidence is applicable to basically everything we do in science class. So if you select that one, great, because it's super real world prevalent, but consider a second one as well. So if we take a look at these science engineering practices, there are 8, and each time that you click on one, let's say we pick arguing from evidence, you can see the different grade level bands and what students should be expected to do at each approximate grade band. Okay, so here are some options for writing an SEP-based deliverable. If you want them arguing from evidence, maybe you're going to have them state a claim and provide evidence that they collected during the demo. Maybe you want them to develop a model, so you'll have them draw a model that represents how the demo informed their understanding of something, and maybe a further demonstration then improves their ability to draw that model, and so on. Maybe you want them to analyze and interpret data, so you're going to say, use the data collected in the demo to make a graph of blank. Maybe you want them asking questions, so you'd have them assign them a task like, based on the activity you watched, what questions do you have about what we could test next? These are just some examples of deliverables that you can assign that are based on the science and engineering practices from the NGSS. So at this time, let's go ahead and pause the video. And you're going to revisit your deliverable from your guided notes. Each task should be purposefully assigned to an SEP. So rewrite the deliverable that you made to ensure that it is fully aligned to the practices. Okay, and now let's go ahead and double plan. As you review your double planning document, you're going to assign a student action that lines up with every teacher action that you've chunked out. If their action is taking notes, it should be because they'll use them to engage with a science and engineering practice deliverable immediately afterwards. Generally speaking, note-taking should be structured and not freeform, because if you already have a clearly defined purpose, then you should have a clearly defined reason why they're taking notes. So let's take a look at some examples. So some things that students can do during the video. Maybe you're going to ask them during the video to make observations about something or answer some specific and time-stamped questions on a handout. Maybe you want them to find some number of examples of a phenomenon or write the questions that they have about what's happening. Maybe you want them to predict what will happen next or describe the reason for something, or maybe you want them to record data. So go ahead and pause the video. You're going to script out the student actions column of your double planning guide. And you're going to stay away from actions like take notes, but instead ask yourself, based on the deliverable that students will complete after the demo, what active task should I assign during the video? Go ahead and pause the video now. So you'll notice that in this video tutorial, instead, I frequently ask you to pause the video and complete a task. At one point, I advise that you may want to watch it twice. If you're having students make observations or collect data from an activity that you're recording, you may opt to have them watch twice or pause and write after a short snippet of video in place of an activity they do while the video is rolling. That's totally your call, but the majority of a demo should see students actively completing tasks. So at this time, let's go ahead and pause the video, and you're going to script out the student actions of your double planning script. Okay, so we are right here, and at this time, we're actually getting close to being finished. So what I want you to do now is go back through your planning document, your script. Let's see if we can pull that up one more time. There we go. And make sure that the actions that students take during the video actually align to the SEP-based deliverable that you're assigning afterwards. So to clarify, if your post-video deliverable is to submit 3 questions about what we could test next, then your in-video tasks might center around identifying variables or cause and effect for the experiment, remembering that cause and effect is a cross-cutting concept from earlier. So these activities would be standards aligned because asking questions is one of the science and engineering practices. Okay, if your post-video deliverable is for students to roll a ball down a ramp and calculate acceleration, then their in-video tasks should involve collecting and analyzing data from an exemplar that you provide. It might also involve naming sources of error. Let's see if, there we go. It might also involve naming sources of error or procedures to ensure that the investigation goes properly. So this would be standards aligned because conducting investigations is a science and engineering practice, and it could lead to productive follow-up discussions and analysis, as each student would have a different setup since they're completing it with materials from their own home. It might also lead to a follow-up demo, there we go, where they collect and analyze control data that you provide or extrapolate their data to a mathematical model, all of these being standards aligned tasks. Okay. So then you'll go back through your teacher actions column and double check that your teacher actions will in fact set students up to successfully take the actions you want them taking and get correct answers, and then to successfully complete the follow-up task. If all of this checks out, it's time to record. So let's go ahead and pause the video, and you're going to review the teacher actions column and check that your words and actions enable students to successfully complete the in-video tasks. So the things that you say allow them to complete the things that you want them doing during the video. And that your words and actions enable them to complete the subsequent deliverable, this SEP-based deliverable that you assign. So the last question for you is, will completing that deliverable produce the outcome that you wrote back in step 1? And your answer should become yes. Okay, so the first time that you do this, it feels like a lot of work. And actually, scratch that, it is a lot of work. Inquiry-based science planning is definitely more challenging than just imparting content, but it's also significantly more engaging. A video demo that engages students using inquiry-based methods will pay dividends for how students retain information and how they opt in on future activities. This is way more fun for students, it's way more engaging for students, it's way more impactful for students than just blanket watching a video or worksheets and reading. So good luck. Your deliverable now is to double plan and block out your first virtual lesson, to film it, and to send it back to us at STEM Library Lab. So looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you soon. Thanks so much.